Welcome back to the Emerald Knight, Part 25, As a Stone. Did you enjoy my dulcet tones? That's a joke from another friend of mine. The phrase dulcet tones always made him laugh. I don't know why, I can't remember why, but anyway, that just made me think about him. It's surreal thinking about these characters after it's been a year of working on this story. I mean, narratively speaking, there hasn't been much, not much has really happened. I still like these characters, and I like the development of their relationship thus far. And I want to do cool things with them, but truthfully, I still don't know how this story is going to end. I don't have much cooked up. I mean, there are a few bits and pieces, ideas that I have in mind that I think would be interesting for these characters to deal with or interact with, so on. But so far as like big climactic ending, I still feel like I'm very far away from that. I feel like there hasn't been enough going on between the characters, or we haven't seen enough of the characters, or I haven't seen enough of these characters, discovered enough about them to really understand what the climax should really call for. There are these bigger moments that I have in mind that are closer toward the end of the story. I assume anyway, closer toward the end. Like, as I said, I don't really know how it's going to end exactly. But anyway, so there are these bigger moments that I have in mind. However, how I'm going to get there is another story entirely. So, like, the plot development between this part and those bigger moments toward the end, I don't really know how we're going to get there. I've also been learning a lot lately about weapons and weapon design and how to use weapons, medieval weapons specifically. And the more I learn about it, the more increasingly I become concerned with the design of the knight's sword. I mean, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. My initial concept, my big idea behind it was that any part whatsoever that I would turn it into something lethal. Like, every part of the sword can be used as a weapon, not just the blade, right? And learning more about medieval weaponry and their function and what they had to combat, I've learned that it's probably more beneficial for a soldier, a warrior, or whatever, to have some sort of like polearm or poleaxe type of weapon. Something that can penetrate armor, or at least provide or deal enough percussive force to do damage underneath the armor. And so I become increasingly concerned about the sword. I mean, it is a great sword, and I don't exactly know how a great sword holds up against armor. That's something I'll have to research further on. I just really want to avoid, trying to redesign the sword. But, I mean, like I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just, there are some concerns I have with it, like the hilt itself. There's a potential design, like, not necessarily a flaw, but like if the knight were to half sword, or to grab that bit of the blade between the two pegs and the hilt, the part of the sword that has the markings etched into it, there's a chance that the hilt itself could be problematic in trying to handle the weapon. Like it may stab her in the wrist or something as she's trying to manipulate the sword, gripping both the handle of the sword and that bit of the blade with the etched markings, if she were to ever use it that way. So I'm not sure exactly how to... If the prongs around the hilt are sticking out too far for that to really be a problem. I'm not sure. I'm just becoming increasingly concerned about all that. Because, you know, I didn't have much experience or knowledge about medieval weaponry or medieval stuff in general when I first started the story. And I wanted a cool visual for like a type of title screen, you know? And a thumbnail. But it's something to be aware of or whatever in the future. I like this part when we get Eranthis waking up. It is reminiscent to the very beginning of this story of the Emerald Knight, where Eranthis is waking up to the siege of her town, and I enjoy that reminiscence. Juxtaposition? Is that I don't know. I don't think juxtaposition quite describes it. I could be wrong though. In my mind, juxtaposition like describes something, or taking one thing that is typically unlike another thing and showing them side by side, typically with like an air of irony or maybe a comedic purpose, some sort of a narrative purpose behind that. But I would consider this more reminiscent rather than juxtaposed. Again, I could be wrong, but also there was a moment before this moment where Eranthis is waking up, where was describing like weight measurement, pounds, stones. I'm not sure if I really want to get like so far, like I'm not sure how far away I want to get from reality, like our modern reality in this story. Like, what is their measurement system, you know? And how would all that factor out and all that stuff? And that furthermore begs the question, how fantastical am I going to get with this story? Is it just going to be everything is more or less the same, just there are different races of humanoid beings, like elves and whatnot? And that there's a magic system, which I still haven't really nailed down how the magic works exactly, or how the magic system is going to really play out. But I think you understand my point. I mean, even after a year, I'm not sure. I haven't explored the world enough to really gauge what I would really want. I'm personally okay with a fantasy story being, like, not too far from our own reality. But it's not like I'm concerned about pleasing other people who want to see, like, crazy fantasy creatures like phoenixes flying around all the time. It's just, I've never tackled fantasy before, and I'm the type of person, or the type of writer, who wants to, has a strong desire to milk it for all it's worth, you know? I don't want to avoid a certain aspect of a genre or subject matter just because it's difficult. And I want to just stretch it out for all I can, or squeeze out all the good stuff as much as I can, you know? Like, maybe even explore stuff that I haven't been exposed to, that hasn't necessarily, explore stuff that hasn't really been explored before, at least not in my experience. One more thing I wanted to mention before the end of this part. There was a part, like, about around where I was talking about measurements, like stones, pounds, talking about the fish trap, where I was going back and forth a little between calling it river, stream, water. Now, there's been several occasions where I've read like creepypastas or fan fictions or even published novels that have, in my opinion, overused synonyms. Like, again and again, I would see like phrases referring to the same noun or same person as, like, the blonde woman or the short man or something to that nature. Now, it's fine to use synonyms, but it becomes annoying. It can become problematic when you overuse synonyms. What happens is that when a reader has to read all these synonyms, they're reprocessing what the heck the writer is referring to again and again every time they come across a synonym, instead of the character's name, which is why I use the characters' names as much as possible. I've made a point to make it a part of my genetic code that no matter what one is writing, business, poetry, or prose, that clarity is the most important thing ever. It's like God. Anyway, that being said, thank you for joining me.